I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction. Here with your cattle market summary for the week ending February the 15th, brought to you by Cargill Vigortone. Part of being in the cattle business is dealing with things that are out of your control. It comes with the job. But when you feed Vigortone Mineral, there's one thing you can always count on: peace of mind knowing that your cattle are getting the nutrition that they need when they need it. Learn more at Vigortone.com. We found out who the boss is, but if you're wondering who's the boss on this fat cattle trade, it's definitely the packer. The only reason you get anything done, ever gain $1 or keep it steady or keep from going $5 lower, is because of the packer's generosity. And not this past week, but the week before, your cattle feeders got a little bit high on their horse, and they were finally able to get 125 easily, which we'd been waiting on for months, and actually were asked to take 126, would not do it, bulled up, wanted 127. Packers let down on them, and didn't have much trade at all, except for a few guys in the north that took the 125, never got the 126 on a mainstream deal. And then, I know that the cattle feeders were thinking 127 that week, and then 128, 930 this past week. None of that happened. So did not develop. And even though we didn't really lose a whole lot of ground on the board through the week, we still were not able to gain any ground on your fat cattle trade. So that's kind of the way we were on that. Look at some other things that happened through the week. Some of your Democratic leaders decided to declare war on eating meat, like we really needed that. Cory Booker especially, he's the one that believes he's Spartacus, and he's decided to be a vegan and thinks everybody else should too. Now, I think the rest of us that have common sense know that the good Lord put us here at the top of the food chain with lots of other creatures running around here and bountiful natural resources in order for us to thrive and grow and populate and have a life. And I don't know where growing the fake stuff in the petri dish come into play on that. We've been using animal proteins since the very, very beginning, and the cavemen knew what that was all about. There's a reason that we got these teeth right here, and that's to rip and chew meat. And you can usually look at animals and see what kind of teeth they have, and then you know what kind of food they take in. But if they think that we're, as a people in this United States, are going to elect a president that won't eat a hot dog or a cheeseburger, I think they've got another thing coming, and there's still more of us than there are them. And realize, guys, that we're in a fight right now, and do not let it go. If you see an opportunity to push animal agriculture, animal protein, or real meat, whether it be even milk, fake milk, or whatever it is, dairy products, anything, take that opportunity to push it, because we can't be passive about this. We have to get out in front, and one of these associations needs to step up with a pointy stick, and we'll all fall in behind them, and we'll give a push on this deal, because there's a lot more of us than there are them, and we're a lot tougher and stronger than they are. But you look at what else is going on this week. We talked about early in the past week that Australia is suffering from those big, massive floods and mudslides and things after severe drought for a couple of years there, and they've lost a ton of cattle, over 500,000 that we know of, and hate to see anybody suffer, although you need to think about that as you're thinking about markets down the road. Let's look at the board for last week. February live cattle futures: Monday was up 45 cents, Tuesday down $1, Wednesday down 87 cents, Thursday up 17, Friday up 50 cents, still lost less than $1, with your board ending the week at 126.62. A lot of delivery pressure. That kind of has gone away now as our main takers has kind of stopped taking those deliveries, and now we've got the board in kind of in tight there, close to what cash is, and it's not really worth the expense of delivery. April live cattle futures ended the week at 127.17. You look off to June, it's coming back a little bit. It's just over $9 below that. It was 10 or more, but June is sitting at 118.07. March feeder cattle, Monday was up 57, Tuesday down 27, Wednesday down 87, Thursday up 55, and Friday took a beating down 147. A lot of that just kind of a disappointment in what the fat cattle trade was. Hoping to get some market position here for the future for these feeder cattle. But March feeder cattle went off the board at 142.60, April at 145.22. Like I said, your fat cattle trade very disappointing, steady. And it really wasn't this past week's fail. It was the week before, whenever your packers put everybody else in their place, and now we realize what the pecking order is. And I was talking to a guy, last week that knows a lot more about the negotiated fat cattle trade than I do, and I know a fair amount. And I told him in 5 years we won't have enough negotiated live or dress trade to establish a market for all these formula pricings and contracts and such. And he says, no, they'll keep it around. He said, try to think of anything that the Packers could have more their way than the way it is right now, where they have over 80% of their needs filled, and they can completely dominate that little pinch of trade that they price all the other cattle off of. And I thought about it, and I said, well, yeah, I know you're right, but there could be a push to get a futures price for box beef. We don't want to do that. They'll tie all the cattle to that if they can. But steady market, 125 live pretty much in all the 5 areas, and $200 dress, which is not a bad market. But right now is when you got to make hay, because we've got a small window where these lighter weights of cattle that went through the storm and pulled all the mud are going to hit at the same time that your packers are wanting to step up kill and have plenty of product on hand for that early spring demand when folks want to dust off their grills, and a lot of your restaurants and end users are loading up on product. Box beef cutout values, we thought they were lower than that, but just a little bit off on the average trade, with choice cuts 216.68, the average trade for last week. That was only down 18 cents compared to the average trade from the previous week. Selects at 212.05, just down 27 cents. But a lot of out front trade. They do a lot of contracting on that end of the business too. A lot of out front trade, especially on ribs and loin, your most expensive cut, and those prices were higher for the out fronts. Your slaughter, we knew it was going to be lighter. We had some shutdowns, especially at Fort Morgan. But your slaughter for the week last week, 596,000. That was down 24,000 compared to the previous week, and down 6,000 compared to the same week a year ago. Your real-time index on feeder cattle, based on an 800-pound steer, up through your 12 states there. It's a 7-day moving average. It gives you a good idea what the cash market is. But your real-time index on Cattle Market Central ended the week at 141.55. That was 31 cents lower than the end of the previous week. So we lost a little bit of ground, but actually we're just still not quite up to what the board is saying, because your March feeder cattle contracts at 142.60, we haven't reached that yet. But we know as we go into the spring, we're going to be gaining a little bit of ground. A lot of it with help from the lighter weights, because there's a big push on lightweight cattle here. With all this terrible wet, snowy, rainy, moist winter we've had, that's going to mean lots of good grazing early in the spring, and guys want to get those cattle put together quick. Going to be a lot of graze out wheat, going to be a lot of early grass, and I tell you what, we're going to run out of those lightweight cattle. And if somebody thinks they want to turn out several cattle in April or May, they better get to buying them right now, because there won't be any of them. But cash feeder cattle in your auctions, unevenly steady. It was just kind of depended where you were in the northern plains, the southern plains. Some places, the lighter weight feeders, the 6 and 7 weight feeders that the farmer feeders like to feed, because they use up a lot of cheap corn. Some places they were higher up in there, not as much in the southern plains. Some places it was the opposite. It was just kind of depending where you were at regionally, but not far from steady on your feeder weights of cattle, which a lot of those are mostly calves too. But your lightweight stalker type cattle, calves, lighter calves, weighing under 5.5, under 6 depending on where you're at, but especially out in the southeast on those crossbred calves being ordered to go back west, they were surely $2 to $5 higher, and spots even more than that on the right kind of steers if you found them. But look at some individual quotes late in the week. On Saturday, Santa Teresa livestock auction, Santa Teresa, New Mexico, right on the border. These are Mexican cattle crossing into the United States, and you can imagine about what they are. 100 head of them, weighed 454 pounds through the auction on the border at 183 1/4. You wouldn't want to put too much wheels under those. Let's go up in the Midwest and see a good market. Dunlap Livestock Auction, Dunlap, Iowa. Jim Shabin and company up there, they had a heck of a sale on Friday. 142 head of steers, weighed 797, right at 800 pounds, bring 151. And that's look at your markets for last week from Home DV Auction Office here in Canyon, Texas. We'll talk to you next week.